Welcome. Anybody at Against the Stream for the first time tonight? Welcome, welcome. Anybody at home for the first time tuning in on Zoom? Welcome to you. And I'd like to start by, in service of building community. Part of the Buddhist model is not only our own meditation practice and our ethical behavior, practice of renunciation, but also community connection. And so I'd like to start by having you introduce yourselves to each other and try to give some sort of prompt of what to say to each other than just like, hi, I'm uncomfortable talking to you. Tonight I'm going to talk about what the Buddha did after he gained enlightenment. So what are you going to do after you gain enlightenment? So just like think about like if you became a Buddha, which, I'll give you a simple definition, that through your own efforts and meditation, and you came to this place where you didn't suffer at all anymore. Zero suffering, alleviation of the causes of suffering, which is our attachment, no longer attached. You're able to respond to everything with non-attached appreciation. No matter how pleasant it is, no matter how lovely the experience is, non-clinging. No matter how impermanent it is, non-clinging, letting go. And the ability, you through your own efforts, develop the ability to have compassion for all of the pain, both internal and external. Everything unpleasant met with friendliness rather than aversion, met with caring and warmth and understanding and forgiveness rather than I fucking hate this. No more, I fucking hate this. What would you do if you had no attachment, no aversion, and you totally understood that your mind has a mind of its own and that it's not who you are, and this ego identification, this personality tendency that we have is not who we actually are, that there is not a I, me, mine that owns this human experience, that it's very much impersonal in so many ways, that there's not a solid, separate, continuous self. If you woke up to that and no longer suffered from self-centeredness and understood the nature of your mind and everyone else's mind and the self-centered human condition, that's not your fault. Compassion and non-attachment and this kind of wisdom. So when you have that experience, it's coming soon, I can tell. You're just on the verge. Last week, we talked about the Buddha sitting under his Bodhi tree, battling Mara, and the mind attacking with greed and hatred and delusion, just like your mind attacks you. And that he saw through it, and that he woke up, and that he freed himself from suffering. So just pretend for a moment that that's going to happen for you soon. You're going to be free from suffering. What the fuck are you going to do with it? What would you do if you got enlightened? Did you go to work on Tuesday? Maybe like I'm just going to show up in my life as a kinder, wiser version. Are you going to, start a mega church? If I can sell that shit on Instagram, how can I monetize it? Right? Like that kind of, as soon as you have the, how can I monetize it? Yeah, no, you're not there yet. Not there yet. How can I give it away? How can I? Or part of what we'll talk about tonight, maybe your mind goes to like, I'd fucking go live in a cave and enjoy my bliss. Fuck this world. With non-attachment, non-aversion, but fuck this world. I'm out of here. Fuck the rat race. Which the Buddha came close to, and I'll talk about that tonight, where he was on the verge of like, I don't want to deal with humans. Humans are fucking annoying. that would be, the translated is, he says, that would be vexing to try to teach mindfulness. What a pain in the ass to a bunch of unmindful, self-centered people. That sounds unpleasant. So meet someone at home. I'll put you in groups and tell each other what you're going to do when you get enlightened.
It was a good one. We kept going.
Yeah, that's fun to pretend like you're enlightened, huh? I would do so much cool shit. It's funny how the ego right away wants to be like, I would be so selfless. Everyone would love me so much when I'm not me anymore. All right, well, if we want to ever get there, we have to meditate our way there. So let's do that together. Find a way to sit that is upright and relaxed. As you're ready, allow your eyes to be closed. Make any adjustments necessary to find a sustainable, relaxed, upright posture. Releasing any unnecessary tension in the face, the brow, the eyes, the jaw. Letting the head balance on the neck. Softening, releasing shoulders, chest, and belly. Allowing our hands to just rest. Resting on the knees and the lap. Establishing an attitude of friendliness, of kindness, the intention to be patient and tolerant with your own mind and body. And then establishing mindfulness, present time, non-judgmental awareness of the body, upright, sitting, breathing. Allowing the thoughts to be present in the background, not trying to stop your mind from thinking, but choose not to pay attention to your mind right now. Pay attention to your body. Learn to ignore your mind, break your addiction to thinking. Let the breath be the anchor to the present time experience in the body. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in, feel, receive the sensations of the breath. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out with awareness, clear comprehension. I'm breathing out. A relaxed but focused attention on the sensations of the breath. Each time the attention gets drawn into something else, hearing or thinking, acknowledge it with patience, with acceptance, thinking again, no judgment, it's just what the mind does. But choose to disengage from the thought, come back to the breath, over and over. Present time awareness includes a quality of investigation, bringing curiosity, interest to the characteristic of impermanence. How is the breath changing? How is the experience in the body constantly changing? Each breath has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Bring mindfulness to the beginning of each breath, the end of each breath. Rather than continuing to ignore the mind when your attention is drawn to a thought, investigate the impermanent nature of the thought. The story that the mind is telling about the future or the past or even the present. How it's an unfolding narrative. A worry, a doubt, a desire, a resentment that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If your attention is drawn to a sound, likewise investigating the arising and passing of sound, how it appears, sustains, and disappears. If you're new and you find yourself really lost in thought most of the time, use the body as the anchor to the present, here, sitting, breathing. But try not to have an adversarial relationship with your mind. Accept the thoughts. Know they're there as a process, an impermanent and impersonal process. The mind thinks, just like the lungs breathe, just like the heart beats. A kind and accepting intention towards our own minds, as we try to see more clearly the nature of our minds. Impermanence teaches us to let go. We see through our mindfulness that when we cling, we create suffering. Softening the jaw, the belly, the heart, and letting go of anything that we've been clinging to. About the past, about the future. Accepting this moment just as it is, pleasant or unpleasant, calm or chaotic. For these last couple of minutes, reflect on what it would be like to relate to your mind, your body, with the wisdom of a Buddha. Your mind no different than it is, but your relationship to it. Radically changed. Not taking it all so personally. Being at ease with yourself just as you are. Having compassion for all of the pain, both internal and external. Understanding that happiness or unhappiness is not based on what's happening, but how we respond to what's happening. And this is true for us and everyone else, having the equanimity, being at ease, not trying to control or manipulate or fix anyone. And that your heart naturally radiates loving kindness towards all living beings. Even the enemies, even the difficult, confused. Kindness and compassion for all living beings. Free from jealousy and envy, the heart radiates appreciative joy, empathizing with all of the joy that is being experienced right now. May each one of us experience awakening in this lifetime. To whatever level is possible. May all beings be met with kindness and compassion, appreciation and forgiveness. And may our practice, our community, our good intentions create a positive change, both internally and externally in our lives, our families, our communities, on this planet. For the benefit of all living beings. My sense of what we've come to know as Buddhism, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama's intention was to give us a tool that was applicable, that Buddhism wasn't meant to be some sort of religious belief system, but a practical, applicable way to train our minds and our hearts and our actions, that we could directly experience transformation, not based on what we believe, but our internal awareness shift. And it's what we're doing in mindfulness, it's what we're doing in meditation. And so I'm going to continue tonight with this series that I'm somewhat trying to linearly go through the life of the Buddha. And so the last couple of weeks I talked about the Buddha's birth story and then seeking enlightenment, the 7 years of having left home and meditating and practicing radical asceticism and discovering, creating mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the few things that is totally original to Buddhism. Some of the other parts of the Buddha's teachings, like karma and reincarnation, and already existed in Indian tradition and happened to be true, and so he included it. But mindfulness didn't exist, as I talked about I think it was last week. He was only taught concentration-based meditations. And it was mindfulness that was the game changer for his awakening. And the difference between concentration and mindfulness is the difference between ignoring and including. When you get really concentrated, you ignore the causes of suffering, and then you feel fucking great. Ignorance is blissful. concentrate that shit away. Get the fuck out of here. But concentration is impermanent, so then all of the causes of suffering come back when you're not concentrated. You can ignore it for so long, you can meditate that shit away, as he found. But then mindfulness is, let's include it. Let's turn towards the causes of suffering rather than ignore them. Let's be mindful of what our mind is doing and the suffering that it's creating for us. Let's be mindful of our tendency to craving and clinging and self-centeredness and fear and resentment. Turn towards it, towards our reactivity, towards see it and start to see how impermanent, how impersonal, how much suffering there is when we obey the untrained mind. Mindfulness trains the mind to be inclusive rather than excluding. And that was a game changer. And so he sat there under the Bodhi tree and everything changed. And it wasn't like, my own sense of it is, it's not like it just all of a sudden, oh, I figured out mindfulness. There was that 7-year journey of the asceticism and developing and trial and error of like, okay, concentration is good, but it's not enough. Renunciation is good, but I have a tendency to take it too far, and that's not good either. And that coming back to the middle path, mindful, inclusive, accepting, compassionate, understanding of the nature of our minds, the nature of reality. And what an interesting thing to think about. What would you do? Like we did when you're introducing yourselves, what would you do if you were free? And the Buddha didn't have the motivation. It's not like, it doesn't sound like he went out and said, I'm going to get enlightened and then I'm going to tell everyone about it. He was just keeping it simple. He's like, I'm just going to get enlightened. I'm going to try. If it's possible to end suffering, this self-centered suffering that we create I'm going to try to do that. And then when he got there, if you believe in this shit, he got there. And then my sense from the stories in the scripture is he's a little bit like, oh, fuck, now what? I'm here. Have you ever had that experience where you're so excited about going somewhere? To a physical destination, like I'm going to Venice. It's going to be amazing. And then here you are going like, okay, I'm in Venice now. That's pretty good. Now what? Going on vacation, like the best part of vacation, fucking planning it. So excited to plan, and it's going to be all of the thoughts about like, oh, this. I went to Costa Rica recently. It's going to be amazing. And then you get to Costa Rica and you're like, okay, now what? Here I am. It's hot. There's mosquitoes, and I brought my mind with me. So the way the story goes is that he's sitting there, and I talked last week about how Mara attacked him, the verge of enlightenment, and his mind is doubting his own worthiness. His mind is lusting. His mind is judging, aversive, violent thoughts, lustful thoughts, doubting thoughts. Mara attacks him. And he sees through and he says, I see you. This is just the mind. It's not who I am. It's just judgment. It's just lust. It's just anger. It's just fear. These are just thoughts. This is the impersonal nature of the unskillful aspect of our minds, the ego mind, whatever it is. Sees through it and he says, I'm not buying it. I'm not identified with it. I'm not taking the bait. And that's really the shift from unenlightenment to enlightenment. Us unenlightened people take our minds personally believe we are our motions. We don't just relate to, oh, fear is arising and passing. Like, I'm fucking scared. I feel unsafe. We take it all personally rather than seeing, oh, this is just a afflictive emotion arising and passing through my mind. Oh, look at that. Unworthiness. Interesting. I really feel like a piece of shit today. What's going on in my mind? That sort of gentle, open relating to it rather than being it. This shift. I see you and see the wisdom. And likewise with the wisdom thoughts. And he didn't say like, well, I'm just the good stuff and not the unpleasant stuff. Also the impermanent nature of compassionate thoughts. They arise, they pass. Loving kindness thoughts, the appreciation thoughts. It's all a process. And that battle with the mind, and my sense is that he thought, and I said last week, like he thought, okay, I did it. I finally vanquished. I finally got rid of the ignorance in my mind. I feel like that's like what it's so common to think like, I would be happy if I could get rid of those difficult parts of my experience. And I feel like even the Buddha right into enlightenment sort of brought this, like, if I could just get rid of this identification with my mind, then it would stop. Mara would vanish, disappear, go away. And Mara, Mara is characterized as this like demon that like slinks off, and he's like, okay, you saw through me and you kicked my ass and you're not suffering anymore. And I'm defeated. You ever have that experience where your mind's sort of pissed that you're not taking it personal? There's that part of your mind that's just like, you're not suffering enough about this. You're not, you should be more afraid. You should be more angry. You should suffer a bit more. And that Mara kind of like is dejected. And then the very next day, now he's the Buddha. He's no longer Siddhartha, the lowly, unenlightened Bodhisattva. He is the Buddha, Tathagata, the awakened one. And Mara comes back and says, you're not really enlightened. You think you're holy and pure and totally free, but you're not. And he responds to that thought that arises in his mind. And he says, you're wrong. I am. I see you. This is just fear-based, judgmental, conditioned thought. This is just Mara. I am totally free, even towards this doubt that is arising, even towards this fear, even towards this critical mind state that we call Mara. I am free. And throughout his life, he maintains that level of mindfulness that when those ignorant thoughts arise, he just says, I see you, Mara. Mara continues with the Buddha his whole life. The mind continues. After enlightenment, you still have emotions. Bad news. Your mind still judges and compares and lusts and fears and does all that same shit. But how you relate to it, how personal you take it, how much you suffer about it drastically changes. It's the whole Buddhist model. Not freedom from the arising, but freedom from suffering about what is arising. Now, the other reality here, kind of the bigger picture, is that the frequency decreases. Rather than living in constant self-centered unworthiness, it just comes up once in a while. It's no longer the constant. Mara returns to the Buddha a little like over 40 times in 40 years. So it's not like he's saying every day I'm getting attacked by Mara, but occasionally Mara is attacking. That part of the mind is attacking occasionally, rather than living with it. So he's chilling at the Bodhi tree and he's awake and he's not sure what to do. What should I do? And it sounds like his first he said, wide open are the portals to the deathless. Let those who hear show faith. But if I was thinking about to not tell, if originally I was thinking that this would, to not share the Dharma because I saw that it would be vexing in trying to explain how to get here. It would be stressful. It would be a pain in the ass. How am I going to explain this? Subtle, inclusive, don't ignore your pain, turn towards your pain. Nobody's going to buy that. Nobody's going to click subscribe to embrace your pain. Everyone's going to be like, no, I'm looking for bliss. I'm looking for the end of all unpleasant thoughts and feelings. I'm not signing up for learn to have a sore ass and a loud mind and be at peace with that. So originally he was like, I don't know, it sounds stressful. It's said, Mara is this quality of mind, negative, afflictive, emotions. But then there's the Buddha mind or the wisdom mind. And in this formulation, it's actually talked about as like a divine deity. Mara is like the devil in Buddhism. And then there's these gods, there's these Brahmas. I take it all as psychological analogy, that these are all just human mind states. So I'm maybe too rational, Western, whatever it is, to believe that like there's these demons and gods that are talking to the Buddha. I think it's just the way that religion recorded his internal conversation. And it said that because he was doubting whether he should teach or not, he wasn't sure, that this God visited him and talked him into teaching. And I don't think it was a God. I think it was just a wise part of his mind. That internal dialogue, the devil on this shoulder, the angels on this shoulder that we all have. There's the wisdom and the confidence and you should totally help people. No, that would be a pain in the ass. Don't help people. But you should totally share this with people. I don't feel like it. I want to just chill. I don't want to be of service. And he responds to that thought. He says to his own mind, enough of this teaching of the Dharma that even I found hard to reach, for it will never be perceived by those that live in lust and hate. People died in lust, and whom a cloud of darkness lapses will never see. This truth that goes against the stream is subtle, deep, and hard to see. And it's where we take our banner, against the stream. This truth that goes against greed, against hatred, against self-centered human obsession. People who are died in lust and hatred and political views and opinions and, just self-centered, fear-based ego identification. This teaching that is subtle, that is inclusive, that goes against the norm, that is counter to our instinctual drive towards pleasure away from pain. And as he reflected on it, and had this internal dialogue, the wisdom won. he was reflecting, and one of the stories is that he was sitting near the Bodhi tree by lotus ponds, and that there was some, lotuses coming from mud puddles or ponds or whatever it was, and that he saw, like in the lotus pond, most of the plants and even the bulbs or whatever they are submerged beneath the surface. And maybe there's 100 plants in there and they're submerged, and there's only 2 or 3 that are actually breaking the surface and blooming into the beautiful lotus blossoms. That most of it is submerged. And as he reflected on how, difficult it would be to share the Dharma and to find people who were willing to do this radical path of awakening, he said, perhaps people are like these lotuses. Most people are going to stay submerged, asleep, died in their greed and hatred and delusion. But some, the exception, not everyone, but some will break the surface, or are those that are close to the surface, or those that are coming through, those who have the great fortune of dissatisfaction, who see clearly, like he did, there's a dead end in material and sensual pleasures. And there's a dead end in blind faith and religious ignorance. Ignore ants. And the other analogy that referred, he saw, he's like, humans are so asleep, like the lotus is submerged. He said most people, just because of the way, not judgment of this, just the reality, because of the way we're born with this survival instinct and the craving. And he said, it's like we have mud caked over our eyes. It's so hard to wake up because it's just like so submerged. We're not mindful. We're not born with mindfulness. We're born with selfishness, fear, instinctual. He said, but there are a few beings, as I reflect on it, it does seem like there are some beings, and there'd have to be some beings in every generation that don't have so much dust in their eyes, or that only have a little bit of dust in our eyes rather than completely blind. Just a little obscuration, and he thought about his friends that he'd been practicing asceticism with, these 5 ascetics. And he thought about them, and he's like, those guys, we were homies, meditating our asses off, doing this thing for years, and we weren't quite getting it right. We were a bit confused. We weren't seeing clearly, but those guys are sincere people. Like those guys want enlightenment the way I wanted enlightenment. We were going down a dead end, unfortunately. We were on a path that wouldn't lead to what we were seeking. But maybe those are the kind of people who have a little dust in their eyes that would perhaps understand this teaching, this experience, if I can figure out how to explain it to them correctly. And he didn't have it all formulated. He wasn't like, it took him a while to figure out, how am I going to explain this? Non-attachment and everything's impermanent, and compassion's the only rational relationship to pain, and you can't get rid of pain, and meditating it away isn't actually the solution. We have to meditate with it, towards it. So it took him a little while to kind of figure out, and eventually he figured out, like, okay, he used the medical model. There was suffering, there was a cause of suffering, there's like a disease, and then there was a cure, and the cure to this disease, and he formulated it into the Eightfold Path. The treatment. But before he did that, he did decide, he had that internal dialogue, and he decided, okay, I'm going to go find my homies and see if I can explain this shit to them. See if I can, if I have the ability to impart what I've directly experienced. Can I teach them mindfulness? Can I teach them what I've learned? And he had regained his strength, because remember, he was so skinny, the ascetic, skeletal Buddha, but he'd been eating his yogurt. He's gaining a little bit of weight and gaining his health. And he was in Bodh Gaya, and his friends, he knew they had gone to Varanasi, to just outside of Varanasi, Saranath, which is several days walking. And so he had regained his strength, and he decided that he would try to, reflect on how to impart the Dharma on his way to go find his friends, teach them this against the stream method of awakening. And the first interaction that the suttas talk about is that he ran into somebody as he started walking from Bodh Gaya up to Saranath. And this guy came up to him and was like, "Are you real? Because you look like so happy, and so are you like an angel or a god or something?" And he said, "No, but I'm the only enlightened being on this planet, fully liberated from all forms of suffering." And the guy looked at him and was like, "All right. I hope that's true." I think it's recorded as like, "May it be so, friend." And then he took off by a side path. And he's like, "Oh, maybe I should tone that back a little bit. Maybe just going around and proclaiming that I'm the only enlightened being on this planet is going to freak people out a little bit." Before he formulated the Four Noble Truths, when he was reflecting on this walk, he's like, okay, there was 5 phases to my journey. And maybe I can help if I reflect on these 5 phases of my journey, that will help me explain it to others. He said the first part was that I had faith. I believed it was possible. I had confidence. I thought there had to be a solution. I was optimistic. I was confident. I had faith that it was possible to change our relationship to this human condition. And, I'll just pause for a moment to reflect on your own part of that. Where are you at in this confidence, in this optimism, in this? Because just because he had faith, it didn't mean that his mind didn't keep experiencing doubt. Like we're talking about, even at enlightenment, his mind was still experiencing doubt. He said, but faith was bigger. Confidence, perseverance was way bigger than the doubts that would come through. And so faith, not the absence of fear or the absence of doubt or the absence of, but that the container of like, yep, I have doubt, I have disillusionment at times, but I have a general sense of the capacity for human beings to end suffering, including us, including me, including you. That this is a possibility. He said I had faith that I could do it. I don't love the term faith because it tends to be used, especially in Western religions, but also Eastern philosophies, as a sort of like encouragement to believe some shit that's probably not true. Blind faith. Just believe that shit. Don't ask questions. So it's not that kind of faith. It's more the confidence in our own ability kind of faith. He said, from that faith, number one. Number two, I had the energy. I was willing to put in the work, the effort, the vigorous. I studied, I listened to the teachers, I reflected on what they said, I meditated my ass off. I did the work, I put in the effort. The faith without works is dead. You know that saying? I think it's Shakespeare or some shit. Maybe it's in the Bible. I don't know. Yeah, they stole it from Shakespeare, I'm pretty sure. Because and how many of us have been guilty of that? Of like, oh, I love the Buddhist books and I fucking believe in Buddhism, but I don't meditate. And it's like the effort of, well, what are you going to do with that belief, with that faith? I'm going to put it into action. He said, I did that. I went on this journey. I practiced the asceticism. I did the yoga. I did the, whatever. I chanted Hare Krishna. I did all of it. And had the discernment to be like, well, this works a little bit. This works a little bit. This got me over here. Concentration is good, but it's not the solution. He said, and then the game changer was mindfulness and concentration, and seeing the difference between the mindfulness and concentration, faith, effort, mindfulness, and concentration when brought together. The ability to, in the meditation instruction tonight, I said, pay attention to your breath, break your addiction to thinking. That's where concentration is really good. Break your addiction to obeying your mind. Learn that you can choose to ignore it and develop the ability to be able to choose to ignore Mara, to concentrate it into the background, and you can be at ease in the present. Concentrate your pain into the background. It's a good skill to have. You just don't want to ring that bell over and over and over. It just can't be your only skill, because it's not going to work. But he said, the effort that I put into concentration helped me so much. And mindfulness, when I learned to be focused, but also inclusive, turning towards, being with, accepting, that's what really led to the fifth level, which was wisdom. Faith, effort, concentration, mindfulness, wisdom. And the wisdom was what was the mindfulness and the concentrated mind revealed, is that everything's impermanent. And not as a knowledge, because you already know everything's impermanent, but with mindfulness, the wisdom, the embodied harmony with impermanence. Rather than I know it's impermanent, but I'm still resisting it. Wisdom is no longer resisting, no longer clinging, no longer having an ignorant, delusional relationship, but accepting this is the way it is. It's all impermanent. It's all impersonal. This is just the human condition. We all live with these Mara minds and this craving nervous system, and it's not your fault. The wisdom of seeing clearly the human condition. And the wisdom to begin to meet and consistently meet pain with compassion, which is so counter to our survival instinct that says, no, hate pain. And the wisdom to say, of course, the body hates pain, but the wisdom, heart, mind meets pain with compassion, with acceptance, with tolerance, and that discernment, which pains are avoidable and which ones are unavoidable. And for sure, Buddhism isn't teaching, wisdom isn't, masochism. It's not like, just like pain, we worship pain. No, we just understand that it's unavoidable. And compassion is the only wise relationship to unpleasant experience. Hatred makes it worse. So he's thinking about this. This is a teaching that's called the 5 spiritual faculties or powers that he talks about later, that he arose in his mind when he's reflecting on, how do I teach the Dharma? How do I put these 5 phases of faith and effort, mindfulness, concentration, and the wisdom of the liberated heart, compassion, and understanding the 3 characteristics? In some ways, it's the first teaching. We talk about the 4 Noble Truths as the first, because it's the first time he verbalizes it, which I'll do next week, where he puts it into the 4 Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. But these 5 qualities are something that he's reflecting on as he's walking to Saranath, the way it's recorded. So I'll leave it there for tonight. And I've got a question for you. You got a question? I got a question for you first, for everyone, and then you can ask a question. Think about how much confidence you have. And like even 1 to 10, how much confidence do you have in your process of transformation? In the Dharma, Buddhism, maybe you have some other spiritual influences that are, inspiring, but how much, where are you at? Like, are you at like a 2? Are you a skeptic? You're like, I don't know, I'm court ordered. I'm just checking this shit out because my therapist told me I had to. Skeptical. Or are you like on fire right now? This changes, right? Sometimes you're super confident and super at a 9, confident, I'm fucking super inspired, I'm going to get enlightened first. And so think about that. Where are you in that, like 1 to 10? Arbitrary, but just to see where your heart is these days, today, on confidence in your own process. And when you think about that, then think about how much effort are you putting in? Again, looking at that sort of scale of, I'm at a 7 in faith. Maybe I'm at a 10 in faith. I totally believe all in. And then looking at like, well, how much effort am I putting in? And, you get like, 1 or 2 for meditating, and 1 or 2 for practicing the 5 precepts, and 1 or 2 for, being more careful with your speech and your livelihood and really engaging in the whole Eightfold Path, and 1 or 2 for, like going on retreat, actually making it a priority in your life. Like I'm gonna, rather than go to vacation, I'm gonna go on retreat. Like, how much of a priority are you putting awakening in your life? And if you want to claim 10, you better be sitting every day, practicing the precepts, going on retreat, like really putting in the work, like constant vigilance. So, probably, you're like at a 6 or a 7, or maybe you're at a 2. You're like, I meditate once a week at class, really calling it in. Which, I probably shouldn't be judgmental about that. But it's a low level of effort. And the reality is, this path, if you want to get the benefits, if you want to get the freedom, it takes a lot of effort. And interesting just to look at our own minds of like, I totally believe it, but I don't really do it. My faith with a little bit of work, or and I'd imagine that some people actually have the flip side, where you're like, I don't know if this shit, very low faith, but I meditate every fucking day because I'm desperate. No, not a lot of confidence, but a lot of effort. And that sometimes it's the effort that increases the confidence. When we start to have that verified, okay, it's working, I'm suffering a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. Question in the back, please.
Yeah, my name is Louis. Thank you for Right. My question is, you know, you were talking about, you know, he was taking a walk, thinking about how, you know, he's going to explain Dharma, and you know, you talked about like faith and then effort, and like faith without effort is lost or whatever. But like, it seems like he was focusing on, you know, his goal of reaching enlightenment, which involved a lot of meditation and, you know, mastering concentration and stuff. But would he like, how would he answer like a question of like, were you able to reach enlightenment, or would you be able to reach the point you're at if you were focusing on other crafts at the same time? Like, you know, trying to think of things that were, you know, existing back then, like sculpture, or like, you know, if he was putting in effort into sculpting and being a master at that at the same time, or like, you know, bodybuilding, you know, like, you know, the ancient
Sure.
Greeks. Yeah, just you know, it's, and it makes me think of like, you know, the phrase of like a jack of all trades or master of none. It seems like he was a master of one and not really focused on a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And that's like the only way he was able to reach enlightenment.
I like the question, and could you hear it at home? I'll repeat. I'll try to repeat it. The question was like, okay, the Buddha like was just a full-time meditator, which led him. But what if, you know, what would he say to those of us who are like, well, you know, yes, I meditate, but I also have all of these other activities or passions, creative endeavors, career goals, relational, and that it does sort of, the story is so much about him seeking enlightenment and finding enlightenment. Part of his backstory is that he didn't start meditating until he was 27, seriously, and you know that he did those 7 years. So before that, he was raised, you know, in a kind of abundance, and probably was trained in. His father was a warrior king, so he was probably trained in a sort of his military martial arts. There's stories about him learning weapons, and so he did have a worldliness and sexual experience. He had all of that experience, and found I'm not getting a lot of happiness out of this, and it's one of the reasons why I'm going on this spiritual journey. And I think that your answer will be, the question will be answered better next week when we talk about the full Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, because the basic answer, he was asked that question a lot. Do I need to just be a full-time meditator, or can I be in my life with my job? And his answer was, no, you don't have to be a full-time meditator. If you follow this Eightfold Path and you bring mindfulness to your speech and your actions and your livelihood and your sculpting or bodybuilding, or the difference between him and us is that nobody taught him mindfulness and how to do that in daily life. We're so fortunate because now we know how to train the mind to bring mindfulness into all of our activities. He had to do all of that time because there was no instructions. You know, it's that sort of like trying to figure it out on your own. We actually have a map. There's a whole fucking guide of how to walk through life and not suffer about it. How to train your mind to see clearly and respond wisely. It's called Buddhism. It's like, it's fucking awesome, right? We have this whole thing that we get to follow. He didn't have that. So he had to like go down this dead end and that dead end and this fake guru and that, you know, like, and we're over here going like, okay, hopefully we can avoid some of those dead ends and bring mindfulness in our meditation into all of our activities, careers, relationships, creative endeavors, and that you can get totally free in this lifetime through these tools, through this practice. So and it'll be addressed more next couple talks. Last thing, it is time. I just want to acknowledge the passing of the wonderful teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, who died this week. And he was an awesome teacher. And his books are killer. Read Thich Nhat Hanh books. They're super, there's like 57 Thich Nhat Hanh books. I guess they're probably all good. I read like 5 of them probably. This story that I'm telling of the Buddha's life, Thich Nhat Hanh did a very cool, super creative version called Old Path, White Clouds. I might have said this last week, actually. But if you want to read a fun life of the Buddha, totally fabricated, kind of like I'm doing, and exaggerated, and he turns them into characters and gives dialogue, and Old Path, White Cloud is a great, fun life of the Buddha read. And what an awesome example of like a modern, in our lifetime person who took the Dharma and embodied it and spent his lifetime sharing it with others, having escaped the Vietnam War and coming and being a teacher and a social and political activist. And I just think that, I studied with Thich Nhat Hanh and did some retreats and went to lots of lectures. And for me, he wasn't my heart teacher, obviously. I'm not in that lineage, but I was very inspired by him and integrated a lot of his teachings into my practice and into my teachings. And he lived to be 95. Fucking, what a run. 95 years old. And of course, the reality is we die. And so it's not like, my own feeling, it's not like super sad that he died, as much as like fucking stoked that he lived. And that he was able to live such a long life and share the Dharma with so many millions of people, including me and so many of us in our community. And so I just want to acknowledge him and celebrate his teachings, and I'll stay away from all of my criticisms that I have and just stay with the appreciation for tonight. And also a friend in the community, Stephen Moak, who remodeled this room and built the shelves over there and the kitchen, and he actually remodeled this whole space for us, also died this week. And some of you might have known him. He was often here on Monday nights, and friend of mine and friend of the communities, and died this week. And I've been feeling that. It was it's close to me. And he was close to my kids too. And it was my kids' first experience of somebody that they knew and loved dying, and kind of like watching that grief on 10-year-old and 13-year-old kids. And so I want to dedicate the merit tonight to these two beings that passed this week, Thich Nhat Hanh and Stephen Moak. They're just, very similar. Any merit that comes from our practice, our wise intentions, our mindfulness, be offered outward in all directions, and sending some of this merit, these blessings, these good thoughts to Stephen Moak, wherever his process is continuing, to Thich Nhat Hanh, and to Moak's family and friends who are grieving his loss, and to all of the people who are grieving the loss and celebrating the life of Thich Nhat Hanh. And may each one of us get as free as possible, and together may we create a positive shift in this culture, on this planet, in this lifetime. Next week, we'll take up the Buddha getting to Saranath and turning the wheel of Dharma. See you then. Oh, don't forget to donate. Against the Stream needs your money, so make some donations on your way out.